Aw, don't worry, Jeets. You'll get to celebrate this year, and it won't be Freezer Day. Hey guys, MasakoX here, and happy holidays! For this festive season, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different in terms of what-ifery. It's going to be a sort of special type of what-if. It's still grounded in the world of Dragonball and its lore, don't get me wrong. This isn't just some kind of random story. This is kind of something that might actually lead to a certain character's development later on in the series. Okay, so what brought this on, Masako? Well, Philly and I were talking about what kind of video I could do for Christmas. I mean, I could have just done some more of the standard what-ifs and be done with it. Simple as that, right? But at the same time, we got talking about, well, do Dragon Ball characters actually celebrate Christmas? But then I got thinking about, ooh, how about if certain characters didn't celebrate Christmas? The question is, though, who would be the right candidate for that? Well, after a few minutes of thinking, the answer was obvious. Vegeta! And most particularly, the Vegeta that was around during the pink shirt days just after Trunks had come with his warning about the androids. There are at least 3 years worth of story that we kind of just skipped over, so, you know, we could just stick anything here. Now, Vegeta is nowhere near as barbaric as he was when we first saw him on Earth during the Saiyan saga, but he's still trying to find his feet about how Earth works exactly, so he's at the beginning of his journey in terms of redemption. He's still trying to figure out why these Earthlings celebrate this bizarre holiday. Now, just because this Earth isn't like our Earth, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't celebrate Christmas. So I thought it'd be really good fun to try and explore, well, Vegeta's journey to understanding Christmas, akin to the Charles Dickens classic A Christmas Carol. And that means that Vegeta here is Ebenezer Scrooge. Now let's begin this story just after future Trunks left, warning us all about androids 17 and 18. Or at least he thought it was just going to be those two. It's the holiday season and everybody is getting into the spirit of the event. However, a certain somebody isn't, and I think you know who it might be. He basically doesn't understand the concept, and for good reason. You see, I can imagine that Saiyans don't really hold those kind of traditions, or any traditions really. If they did have traditions, they would be nowhere similar to ours. Or at least we're unaware of their traditions, and if that does change, I will stand corrected. So as the gang are getting ready, being festive and all that, Vegeta is doing his utmost to be an absolute jerk. Bulma and Dr. Briefs are putting up decorations with Yamcha and Puar helping them out, and Vegeta is doing nothing about this. He isn't helping. The only thing he's helping at is to make them feel bad by just standing around and hurling insults at everyone. He thinks they're absolutely stupid celebrating this pointless thing. Everybody's trying to ignore Vegeta during this time, but his constant berating of why he thinks Christmas is so silly and they shouldn't be doing this, it's really starting to annoy everybody, and it gets to the point where Bulma has no choice but to lash out. Which then in turn causes Vegeta to lash out, and then just blow up the remaining decorations, tearing it all apart and just going, "Ha! No more useless junk!" And then he just swans off feeling good about himself. Wow, he really is a jerk. Next, he feels like he really needs to get rid of this Christmas nonsense, so he's gonna go and try and find Kakarot so he can have a bit of training with him. So that means he doesn't have to think anything about other than just fighting what he loves. But little does he know that Goku is Champion Christmas, because most of the merchandise and promotional art or any kind of art to do with Christmas has Goku in it. When he gets to Goku's house, the whole place is filled with Christmas ornaments and even Gohan's outside building a snowman. And understandably, Gohan is scared at seeing Vegeta there all of a sudden. The prince glares at Gohan for a moment before Gohan tentatively says, "Merry Christmas, scram, brat!" And naturally he does so. Goku then wanders out wondering what the commotion's all about, and then he sees Vegeta. He's happy to see Vegeta, thinking, "Oh boy, you wanna have some fighting, Vegeta? Merry Christmas!" Vegeta did want to fight with Kakarot, but right now he is far too distracted at all of the ornaments and decorations around him and is just getting his blood boiling again. Goku then explains that this time of year is absolutely awesome. Not only does he get a lot of presents, but he gets to eat. Even more than usual. And not only that, Goku remembers the early days with Grandpa Gohan. They used to celebrate Christmas in their own little way. They just get all cozy inside their little house when it's snowing outside. They'd have a fire on. They'd be cooking food and then eating it and just being together. It just really brings back some good memories for Goku. Vegeta, however, has absolutely no connection. Without saying anything else, Gohan's snowman is the victim of Vegeta's blast and then he just storms off again. Gohan isn't exactly crying, he's more dumbfounded as to why Vegeta's being such a Scrooge. Get it? Returning to Capsule Corp, Bulma isn't speaking to Vegeta at all, and really, does this really matter? I mean, Vegeta's kind of okay with that. He would rather just go to bed and end this day talking about Christmas nonsense, and he'd be rather rid of it so he doesn't have to think about it ever again. However, when he returns to his living quarters, he is met with a visage that he thought he would never see again. In the glass reflection of his door, he sees somebody he didn't expect. Nappa. You know where I'm going with this. He didn't think he would actually see this guy around. He thought he was in the afterlife. He is here to say that he has been a terrible person for being so flippant with this festive celebration which brings everybody together and make people happy. Vegeta has been doing the opposite. This is just a simple pleasure for humans. And I know that you might be confused as to why this is Nappa saying this. Isn't Nappa meant to be just as barbaric as Vegeta? But I think that things would have changed in the meantime since Nappa's demise and where we are right now. Since going to the afterlife and Hiffle, it means that Nappa's probably changed in some kind of way, because we don't really get to see him. I'd imagine through all of the correctional therapy and stuff like that in the afterlife, he'd be some kind of reformed character. Not exactly good, as it were, but at least understanding and a bit more wise. And besides, this is a Christmas story, so some things change just for the sake of the story. And also for the fact that Nappa would like to torment Vegeta after the whole abject act of betrayal that Vegeta committed back in the Saiyan Saga, remember? I think he'd still be sore about that, because Nappa had been around Vegeta ever since the guy was a little kid. He has seen Vegeta grow up, and even if the Saiyans are meant to be cold and vicious mercenaries, they still have some kind of connection. Yes, it may be much less loving than human connections, but it's still something that brings them together, a sense of affinity. Something that Nappa would say like, Nappa and Vegeta are good allies, they work together well. Or at least, Nappa thought they did. As for Vegeta, he's not fazed at all at this apparition of such a weakling. He thought he was done with him, he still is. This is just a figment of his imagination. He ignores everything that Nappa's saying to him. Tonight, Nappa says, he will be tormented by 3 different spirits of entities from his past, present, and future. He will not know exactly who they will be, but they will be here to try and teach Vegeta the error of his ways. Yes, I know, it's going back to the Vegeta. Tonight you'll be tormented by 3 ghosts! And they're all me. This time they're not. What Nappa's trying to get at here is that Vegeta can no longer be the Saiyan Prince that he once was. He needs to shatter the illusion that he's trying to cling on to and just embrace this new life, because otherwise it's just gonna drive him crazy. They can move on and just embrace the true desire for fighting and training and bettering oneself. Yeah, they're gonna go extinct if they're not careful, so this new life is their only chance for survival. Nappa says that if Vegeta can understand this for once, he might just actually spare Vegeta the visitations from these 3 spirits. He can have a good life here on this planet. He may not be the strongest, but he could definitely be at least the 2nd strongest being on this planet, and that is much better than he could ever have hoped for just 10 years ago. As a warning, Nappa then conjures up beeps and whirs and whistles from all of the computational stuff inside of Vegeta's quarters. Everything's going haywire and crazy. Nappa's just trying to prove a point here, and this is trying to make Vegeta scared. It's not making him scared, it's making him angry. In a fit of rage, Vegeta's now punching all of the computer interfaces around the room. It's all exploding and cracking and whirring and just everything's going crazy. Then a Christmas card appears on his table. It's from Bulma, trying to seek forgiveness and reaching out to Vegeta, but he doesn't want to have any of this. He just tears it in two, and that just tears it for Nappa. He then slams into bed, covers himself with the covers, and tries to forget everything that's going on around him and trying to drift into some kind of state of sleep. Now eventually, these things do cease and the prince drifts off. When the clock on the wall beeps 1 o'clock, something changes. The first ghost appears, and it resembles the form of Frieza. Masako, why is Frieza the ghost of Christmas past here? Well, it's actually quite obvious. Frieza, you see, is pretty much the embodiment of Vegeta's past. Yes, he may not be Vegeta's father, but he's as good as a father figure, and not a very good one. Yes, Vegeta did have King Vegeta. He was around for the first few years of his life, but he didn't really make much of an impact. He was more of a ruler than a father. I would imagine that Vegeta was actually tended to by either his mother or other attendants that were meant to take care of children. So I think in some strange Stockholm Syndrome-y kind of way, the child Vegeta would have actually looked to Frieza for some kind of reconciliation or some kind of state of solace as a father figure. Frieza, or at least the embodiment of Frieza, then whisks Vegeta back to the past. Back to a time before planet Vegeta was destroyed, where the little Prince Vegeta was playing around with some other minions, as well as meeting Nappa for the very first time. Through the eyes of a child, Nappa actually looked kinda cool. Not to mention that toupee-like head of hair on the top of his bonce, that was kinda funny. It amused the young prince. Vegeta remembers that moment, and that actually then morphs into a less happy memory. It's the vision of Beerus demeaning his father, making him look like a piece of trash whilst the prince, the young prince, watches on in shock. That memory burned into his mind because his once proud father was now just seen as weak. Frieza was bad enough, but this creature was even more terrifying. The scene changes again, and the illusion we then see next is the destruction of planet Vegeta, when the little kid finds out about all of this, and the only constant around, the only crumb of comfort he has, is that Nappa's there. From this new perspective, Vegeta can now relive the times from his past where it just was quite clear that, really, his childhood kinda stunk. But he doesn't actually really learn much from this. All he just can take away from this is that, good! I'm glad I managed to go away from Frieza and get to Earth somehow. What I did was right. I know I'm right. I'm not learning a thing. I don't need to learn a thing. The Frieza ghost chuckles. Oh, I'm not done yet, Vegeta. He is reliving all of the times where he was just alone. He had nobody to comfort him. Even Nappa was away on a mission. Vegeta was just left to his own thoughts, and that thought scared him. All Vegeta thought of himself was just as some kind of quirky oddity, not a prince. Yeah, ultimately Lord Frieza did give him a home, an accommodation, and some kind of a job, but this is not the existence for a young prince. He and the other Saiyans, Nappa and Raditz, were effectively prisoners. Up until he arrived on Earth and discovered these Earthlings, his life didn't really have that much meaning, other than the occasional sense of relevancy when he was able to dominate a certain race or a planet or something like that, to make himself feel superior. But it wasn't for his own benefit, it was for somebody else's benefit. Vegeta didn't really get a look in after that. We then fast forward through the times when Vegeta, Nappa and Raditz are going around the galaxy taking out different races and empires, all the way to the point when the younger Nappa was then taken out by Vegeta in the Saiyan saga. Vegeta is watching this from another angle, and he's not exactly thrilled with what he sees. He just looks on the ground, Nappa, who had been by his side ever since he was a child, effectively keeping him safe as a bodyguard, just battered and bruised, looking for help, and Vegeta just not giving it. Just gone. Just looking at Nappa's face, looking all happy, thinking that Vegeta had his back, that they'd be working together, that they'd be able to beat the odds somehow, and then just have his mind completely turned asunder and then vaporized in the sky. This new Vegeta is actually kinda shocked by this. And he's also shocked by being shocked. Have the humans somehow seeped his mind? Have they made him soft in some way? Because the Vegeta looking back at this is quite different from the Vegeta that did the action. Indirectly, being on Earth and being around humans has made him somewhat reevaluate his thoughts. However, his pride still remains strong, and despite all of this, he is able to cast off this apparition and then just forget everything that happened. He heads back to his bed, rolls over, and goes back to sleep. So we're going to leave this part wondering, who is going to be the embodiment of Christmas present? Leave a comment below and let me know who you think it might be. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later.